Most people think stress is something that happens to them, something external, a busy job, family pressure, financial uncertainty. But what if the real danger isn't the stress itself, but the way your brain quietly adapts to it without you noticing? What if your mind has been slowly rewired for survival instead of thinking, learning, and living, and you've mistaken that state for normal? Emotionally reactive over small things, mentally foggy, or strangely disconnected even when you're surrounded by people. This isn't a personal failure. It's a predictable outcome of how modern stress reshapes the brain. And once you understand how this process works, you gain back something powerful: choice. Stress was never meant to be constant. In its original role, stress was brief, intense, and purposeful. It helped humans react quickly to danger, sharpen attention, and mobilize energy in moments that mattered. Once the threat passed, the system shut down, and the body returned to balance. The problem is that today's stress doesn't arrive in short bursts. It lingers. It hums quietly in the background of everyday life, activated by deadlines, notifications, unresolved conflicts, and the pressure to always perform. Your brain does not distinguish between a physical threat and a psychological one. When it senses pressure, uncertainty, or loss of control, it activates the same internal alarm system. This system triggers a cascade of signals through the body that release cortisol, a hormone designed to help you respond quickly. In the short term, cortisol is useful. It sharpens focus and increases energy. But when cortisol remains elevated for weeks, months, or years, it begins to change how your brain is built. One of the first areas affected is the amygdala, the brain's threat detection center. Under chronic stress, the amygdala becomes more active and more connected. This means your brain becomes better at detecting danger, but worse at distinguishing real threats from minor challenges. Over time, neutral situations begin to feel threatening. Small problems trigger outsized emotional responses. You may notice yourself becoming more irritable, anxious, or defensive, even when nothing objectively serious is happening. At the same time, another crucial region begins to weaken: the hippocampus. This area plays a key role in memory, learning, and regulating stress itself. Prolonged cortisol exposure disrupts communication within the hippocampus and reduces the formation of new brain cells. As this region weakens, your ability to calm yourself declines. You don't just feel stressed more often, you lose the internal brake that normally helps shut stress off. This creates a feedback loop. Stress weakens the brain's stress control system, which makes you more reactive to stress, which further weakens control. Many people interpret this as burnout, aging, or loss of motivation, when in reality, it's a nervous system stuck in overdrive. The prefrontal cortex is another major casualty. This region governs focus, judgment, emotional regulation, and long-term planning. Under chronic stress, it literally shrinks in functional capacity. Decision-making becomes harder. Concentration fragments. You may find yourself avoiding complex tasks, relying on habits instead of thoughtful choices, or feeling mentally scattered even after a full night's sleep. This is why chronic stress doesn't just make life uncomfortable. It changes how you think. It shifts your brain from a mode of growth and exploration into one of survival and defense. And when survival becomes the default, creativity, empathy, and long-term vision quietly fade. What makes this even more profound is that stress doesn't only affect how your brain works today. It can influence how your genes are expressed. Research in animals has shown that early experiences of care or neglect can alter how sensitive the stress response becomes later in life. These changes occur through epigenetics, a process that adjusts which genes are turned on or off without changing the DNA itself. Even more striking is that these stress-related adaptations can be passed down across generations. This means patterns of heightened stress reactivity can be inherited, not through destiny, but through biology shaped by experience. Stress leaves a signature, and that signature can echo forward. But here is where the narrative changes. The brain is not fragile, it is plastic. The same adaptability that allows stress to reshape it also allows recovery to reshape it again. Two of the most powerful tools for reversing chronic stress are movement and mindful awareness. Physical activity does more than burn energy. It signals safety to the nervous system. Regular exercise reduces baseline cortisol levels and stimulates growth in the hippocampus, improving memory and emotional regulation. This isn't about intensity or performance. Consistency matters more than effort. Mindful practices work through a different but complementary pathway. By slowing breathing and bringing attention to the present moment, you activate systems that counteract the stress response. Over time, this strengthens communication between the prefrontal cortex and emotional centers, restoring your ability to pause, evaluate, and respond rather than react. Importantly, recovery does not require eliminating stress. That goal is unrealistic. The real shift happens when you change your relationship with stress. When you give your brain regular signals that the threat has passed, that you are safe enough to rest, reflect, and rebuild. This is why small, repeated moments of calm matter more than occasional escapes. The few minutes of focused breathing, a daily walk without stimulation. Brief check-ins with your body throughout the day. These moments retrain your nervous system. They remind your brain that not every challenge is an emergency. The modern world rewards constant engagement, urgency, and productivity. But your brain was designed for cycles of activation and recovery. When recovery disappears, stress stops being a tool and becomes a condition. Understanding this changes how you interpret your own experience. Difficulty concentrating is not laziness. Emotional volatility is not weakness. Mental fatigue is not a lack of discipline. These are signs of a brain that has been pushed into survival mode for too long. The good news is that survival mode is not permanent. With intentional habits, patience, and self-compassion, your brain can regain balance. Growth resumes. Memory sharpens. Emotional resilience returns. Stress will always be part of life, but it doesn't have to control your mind, your decisions, or your future. When you learn how stress reshapes the brain, you stop fighting yourself and start working with your biology. And that is where real control begins.